I never thought I'd find myself snooping through my father's office at midnight, but desperate times call for desperate measures. My name is Marin, and until tonight, I believe my father was just a hardworking businessman who built Callaway windows from nothing. Now, I'm not so sure about anything. The letter trembled in my hands as I read it again under the dim desk lamp. The paper was crumpled, as if someone had crushed it in anger before smoothing it out again. The letterhead belonged to Langston Enterprises, and the words made my stomach turn. Final notice. Acquisition terms. Non-negotiable. 48 hours to respond. I heard footsteps in the hallway and quickly switched off the lamp. My heart pounded as I pressed myself against the wall behind the door, clutching the letter to my chest. The footsteps passed, and I let out a shaky breath. Just yesterday, Dad had been acting strange at dinner. Mom kept trying to get him to eat, but he just pushed his food around the plate. When she mentioned the upcoming charity gala, he knocked over his wine glass. I'd never seen him so distracted. "Everything's fine," he'd insisted, mopping up the red wine with his napkin. "Just busy with work." But everything wasn't fine. The letter proved that. Someone named Victor Langston was trying to take over our company, and from the tone of the letter, he wasn't playing nice. My phone buzzed in my pocket, making me jump. It was a text from my best friend Simone. "Did you find anything?" I started typing a response when voices drifted up from downstairs. I crept to the office door and listened. "Eli, be reasonable." The voice was unfamiliar, deep and commanding. "You're only prolonging the inevitable. Get out of my house, Victor." My father's voice shook with anger. "It's midnight, for God's sake. Time is running out, old friend. Think about your family." The threat in those words was unmistakable. I pulled out my phone and started recording, my hands trembling. "We were never friends," my father spat. "You've been planning this for years, haven't you? Business is business. Nothing personal." Victor's laugh was cold. "Though I must say, your daughter's graduation party last month was lovely. Marin's grown into quite a remarkable young woman." My blood ran cold. I remembered him now, the tall man with steel-gray hair who'd watched me all evening. His son Asher had tried to chat me up at the bar, all perfect teeth and designer suits. "Leave my daughter out of this." Dad's voice had dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Oh, but she's already involved, Eli. More than you know." Footsteps headed toward the front door. I heard it open and close, followed by the sound of a car engine starting. I waited until I was sure Victor was gone before slipping out of the office. At the top of the stairs, I could see my father standing in the foyer, his shoulders slumped. He looked older than I'd ever seen him. Mom appeared from the kitchen, wrapping her robe tighter around herself. "Eli? Who was that at this hour?" "No one, Ruth. Go back to bed." I watched them both retreat to their bedroom, the letter still clutched in my hand. Whatever was happening, Dad wasn't going to tell us. He was trying to protect us, but from what? One thing was clear. Victor Langston was a threat to everything my family had built. And somehow, I was part of his plan. I pulled out my phone and texted Simone back. "Found more than I bargained for. Meet me tomorrow. Early. Sleep wasn't coming tonight." I had 48 hours to figure out how to save my family's company, and I had a feeling Victor Langston wasn't going to make it easy. I met Simone at our usual coffee spot at 7 the next morning, dark circles under my eyes matching hers. She was already waiting with 2 large coffees and a concerned expression. "You look like hell," she said, sliding one cup toward me. "Thanks. You should see the other guy." I pulled out the crumpled letter and handed it to her. As she read, her eyes widened. "Halisit, Naren. This is serious. Have you talked to your dad?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Dad's face appeared on the screen. I showed it to Simone and took a deep breath before answering. "Where are you?" His voice was tight, controlled. "The letter from my office. Did you take it?" "Yes." "No point lying." "Dad, I heard everything last night. Victor Langston. Come to the office. Now." He hung up. Simone raised an eyebrow. "Want me to come with?" "No, but keep your phone on. If I'm not out in an hour, send help." I tried to smile, but it felt more like a grimace. The Callaway Windows headquarters wasn't much, just 3 floors and a modest office building downtown. But it was home. I'd spent countless afternoons doing homework in the break room, learning every employee's name, watching Dad build something real. When I reached his office, I found him standing at the window, hands clasped behind his back. He looked like he hadn't slept either. "Sit down, Marin." I remained standing. "Why didn't you tell me about Victor Langston?" "Because it's not your problem to solve." He turned, his expression softening. "You just graduated. You should be thinking about your future, not. This is my future." I stepped forward, placing the letter on his desk. "Our company, our family's legacy. You can't shut me out of this." "I'm handling it." "Really? Because from what I heard last night, you're running out of time." I leaned forward. "What does he have on you, Dad?" A muscle twitched in his jaw. "You need to stay away from Victor Langston. He's dangerous." "So are we, when someone threatens our family." The words came out fiercer than I intended. Dad's phone rang, making us both jump. He glanced at the screen, and his face went pale. "Go home, Marin. Please."
No.
I crossed my arms. "Whatever this is, we face it together." The phone kept ringing. Dad closed his eyes for a moment, then answered on speaker. "Victor." "Good morning, Eli." Victor's smooth voice filled the room. "I trust you've had time to consider my offer?" "The answer is still no."
Shame.
"I was just telling my son Asher about your lovely daughter. He's quite taken with her, you know. Perhaps we could discuss this over dinner? Both families breaking bread together." I felt sick. The way he'd watched me at my graduation party suddenly made horrible sense. Dad's knuckles were white around the phone. "Leave my daughter out of this." "Oh, but she's already involved. Aren't you, Marin?" My blood ran cold. He knew I was here. "In fact," Victor continued, "I can see her right now, standing in your office, wearing that charming blue sweater." Dad and I both turned to the window. Across the street, on the top floor of the glass office building, a figure stood at the window. Even from this distance, I could make out Victor's satisfied smile. 44 hours left, Eli. Tick-tock. The line went dead. Dad slumped into his chair, looking defeated. "Now you see why I wanted to protect you." I stared at Victor's silhouette, still watching us from his perch. Something hot and determined unfurled in my chest. "You can't protect me forever, Dad. And right now you need help." I turned to face him. "Tell me everything. What does Victor Langston really want?" Dad looked at me for a long moment, then opened his desk drawer and pulled out a thick file. "It started 25 years ago," he began. "Before you were born." The story he told next would change everything I thought I knew about our family and about Victor Langston's true motives. The Langston mansion loomed before me, all stone and glass and old money. I hadn't planned on coming here, but after Dad's revelation about Victor's past connection to our family, I needed answers. The security guard at the gate barely glanced at my ID before waving me through. They were expecting me. Victor Langston stood in his study doorway, a crystal tumbler in his hand. "Marin Callaway, I was wondering when you'd come. You've been watching our office." I kept my voice steady, though my heart hammered. "Why?" He gestured for me to enter. The study was all dark wood and leather, reeking of power and privilege. A chess set sat on his desk, a game in progress. "Do you play?" He moved to the board. "I didn't come here to play games. Didn't you?" His smile was sharp. "Your father taught you chess, I assume?" "He was quite good, back when we were partners." That stopped me cold. Dad had never mentioned being partners with Victor. "He didn't tell you?" Victor's eyebrows rose. Typical Eli keeping secrets, even from his precious daughter. "Tell me what you want."
Direct.
"I like that." He moved a black knight across the board. "What I want is simple. A merger of families, you might say." The door opened behind me. I turned to find Asher Langston entering, looking as surprised to see me as I was to see him.
Dad.
Asher's eyes darted between us. "What's going on?" "Perfect timing, son." Victor gestured for him to join us. "I was just explaining to Marin how our families might solve this unfortunate situation." My stomach dropped as understanding dawned. You can't be serious. Marry my son, Victor said simply. A year, that's all I ask. In return, I'll leave Callaway Windows alone. Your father keeps his company. His legacy remains intact. What? Asher stepped forward. Dad, you can't. Quiet, Asher. Victor's voice cracked like a whip. You've had every advantage, and what have you done with it? Perhaps a wife like Marin is exactly what you need. I watched Asher's face flush with anger, and something else, shame? He wouldn't meet my eyes. This is insane, I said. I barely know him. You have 24 hours to decide. Victor set down his glass. After that, I call in your father's debts. All of them. The company falls, and your family's name becomes worthless. Why are you doing this? Because sometimes, Marin, revenge is best served across generations. He moved another chess piece. Ask your father about Sarah Langston. Ask him what really happened 25 years ago. The name hit me like a physical blow. Sarah, Victor's first wife. Dad had mentioned her in his story, but he'd skipped over the details. You're using your own son to punish my father? I looked at Asher, who seemed to be hearing this for the first time too. I'm offering you both a chance at redemption. Victor's voice softened. Think about it, Marin. Your father's company, your mother's security, all preserved with a simple I do. My phone buzzed, a text from Dad. Where are you? Come home now. 24 hours, Victor reminded me. Oh, and Marin? Don't bother telling Eli about our little chat. He'll only try to stop you, and then everyone loses. I turned to leave, but Asher caught my arm. Wait. His touch was gentle, unexpected. Let me walk you out. Outside, the evening air was cool against my flesh skin. Asher kept pace beside me. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I didn't know he was planning this. Would it have made a difference if you did? He stopped, forcing me to face him. Look, my father's a manipulative bastard, but he's right about one thing. I'm a disappointment. You deserve better than being forced into this. Something in his honesty made me pause. We both deserve better. 24 hours, he echoed his father's words. Whatever you decide, I understand. I got into my car, my mind racing. Victor's ultimatum, Asher's quiet resignation, Dad's secrets about Sarah Langston. It was all connected. But how? One thing was clear. I had 24 hours to choose between my family's future and my own freedom. And neither option felt like winning. The courthouse wedding was Victor's idea. No guests, no flowers, just signatures and hollow promises. I stood in the bathroom, staring at my reflection in the harsh fluorescent light, my white sundress feeling more like a shroud than a wedding gown. Simone leaned against the door, arms crossed. You can still back out. You know I can't. I checked my phone, another missed call from Dad. He still didn't know about the deal I'd made with Victor. How's Mom taking it? She's
Confused.
thinks it's a whirlwind romance. Simone's reflection met mine in the mirror, which is better than knowing her daughter is being blackmailed into marriage, I guess. A knock at the door made us both jump. 5 minutes, the clerk called. I found Asher waiting in the hallway, looking uncomfortable in his suit. Dark circles under his eyes suggested he'd slept about as well as I had. Ready? He asked.
No.
You? Not even close. He offered a weak smile. Listen about my father. Don't. I held up a hand. Let's just get through this. The ceremony was quick, sterile. Victor and Eloise stood as witnesses, his smile triumphant, hers calculating. When the judge pronounced us husband and wife, Asher's kiss was gentle, almost apologetic. Congratulations, Victor said afterward, pulling out an envelope. Your wedding present, the signed agreement protecting Callaway Windows. I took it without looking at him. The paper felt heavy, like chains. Now, he continued, about living arrangements. We've got that covered, Asher cut in. His hand found mine, squeezing slightly. The downtown loft. We discussed it yesterday. I kept my face neutral, though this was news to me. Victor's eyes narrowed. Very well. Eloise has planned a small reception at the house. Actually, Asher said, We have other plans. Right, honey? I caught on.
Yes.
Sorry, but we should really get going. Before Victor could object, Asher was leading me toward the exit. We didn't speak until we were in his car, safely away from the courthouse. Thank you, I said quietly. For what? Saving you from my mother's idea of a reception, or marrying you to save your family's company? Both. Neither. I stared out the window. There isn't really a downtown loft, is there?
No.
But there's a beach house in Newport that my mother doesn't know about. It's where I go when I need to escape. He glanced at me. We could stay there while we figure this out. Figure what out? How to survive a year of fake marriage. How to beat my father at his own game. Asher's voice hardened. You're not the only one he's trying to control. We drove in silence for a while. The autumn sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of fire. There's something else you should know, Asher said finally. About Sarah, my mother. The real one. My heart skipped. What about her? Dad doesn't talk about her death. But I found some old papers. He gripped the steering wheel tighter. Your father was there the night she died. A black SUV swerved into our lane, cutting us off. Asher cursed, jerking the wheel. We spun, tires screaming, everything blurred. Then impact, glass shattering, metal crunching. When the world stopped spinning, I tasted blood. Asher wasn't moving. Through the cracked windshield, I saw the SUV that hit us. The driver's door opened, and a figure stepped out. Not Victor. My phone buzzed in my pocket. With shaking hands, I pulled it out. A text from an unknown number. Some secrets should stay buried. Consider this your wedding present. Sirens wailed in the distance. I reached for Asher's hand, finding his pulse weak but steady. Whatever game Victor was playing, whatever secrets lay buried in the past. One thing was clear. This marriage of convenience had just become far more dangerous than either of us imagined. And somewhere in the growing darkness, Sarah Langston's ghost waited with answers that could destroy us all. 3 weeks after the accident, I sat in Callaway Windows' conference room, watching Asher present his ideas for modernizing our production line. His arm was still in a sling, but he moved with purpose, commanding attention from the board members. Even Dad seemed impressed. With these upgrades, Asher concluded, we could increase efficiency by 40%. I caught myself smiling. This wasn't the directionless man I'd married. Something had changed since the crash, since that threatening text message we still hadn't discussed. The board voted unanimously to approve his proposal. As everyone filed out, Dad pulled me aside. You two seem comfortable together. His eyes searched mine. Is there something you're not telling me? Before I could respond, Eloise Langston appeared in the doorway. Marin, dear. Lunch. It wasn't really a question. I followed her to an upscale restaurant, where she ordered wine before menus arrived. You've done well with Asher, she said, studying me over her glass. Victor's, please. I haven't done anything. Don't be modest. 3 weeks of marriage, and suddenly my stepson's showing actual business acumen. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. But there's something you should know about Sarah. My hand froze on my water glass. What about her? She had secrets too. About your father. Eloise's voice dropped. About the night she died. Victor keeps the police report in his safe, along with some interesting photographs. Are you threatening me? Warning you. Victor's playing a longer game than you realize. She pulled out an envelope. These are copies. Consider them a gift from one wife to another. I took the envelope, my fingers trembling slightly. Why are you helping me? Who says I am? Eloise stood, leaving cash for the untouched lunch. Sometimes the cruelest thing you can do is tell someone the truth. Back at the office, I found Asher waiting in my doorway. Everything okay? You look pale. I showed him the envelope. Your stepmother has quite a way with lunch conversation. We spread the contents across my desk. Police reports, photographs, newspaper clippings. Sarah Langston's death had been ruled an accident, a fall from the balcony of Victor's office. But the photos told a different story. Dad, I whispered, staring at an image of my father leaving the building that night, his hands bloody. There's more. Asher held up a document. Sarah was pregnant when she died. The dates. He swallowed hard. She was having an affair. My phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. Ask your father about the baby. Time's running out. Asher's hand covered mine. We need to talk to Eli.
No.
I gathered the papers quickly. Not yet. First, we need to. Marin. Nolan Reed appeared in the doorway, his face grave. Your father's collapsed. He's being taken to Memorial Hospital. Everything after that became a blur. The rush to the hospital. Mom's tearful phone call. The doctor's careful explanations about stress and heart conditions. In Dad's hospital room, machines beeped steadily. He looked smaller somehow, vulnerable. Mom had gone for coffee, leaving me alone with him. I know about Sarah, I said quietly. About the baby. His eyes fluttered open. Marin, was it yours? The words felt like glass in my throat.
No.
His voice was weak, but clear. But I helped her hide it from Victor. She was going to leave him that night, take Asher and run. I gave her money, arranged everything. But Victor?
He coughed.
Victor found out. The blood in the photos? I tried to save her. Got there too late. Tears slid down his face. Victor made it look like an accident. Said he'd destroy everything I built if I ever told anyone. But the baby was his brother's. The monitor's beeping increased. A nurse rushed in, ushering me out. In the hallway, I found Asher waiting. I heard everything, he said softly. Your uncle, did you know? He disappeared right after Sarah died. Dad said he moved overseas. Asher's face hardened. Another lie. I leaned against the wall, pieces falling into place. This isn't about our company at all, is it? This is about Victor covering up murder. And now we have proof. Asher took my hand. Question is, what do we do with it? The answer would change everything if we lived long enough to use it. Dad's condition stabilized, but the company was falling apart. I sat in his office, staring at the quarterly reports scattered across his desk. The numbers were worse than I'd imagined. We were hemorrhaging money from accounts I didn't even know existed. My phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. Check the foundation records. Follow the money. The charity foundation. Dad's pride and joy. The one thing he'd never let anyone else manage. With trembling hands, I pulled up the files. Find anything interesting? I jumped. Victor stood in the doorway, his presence filling the room like smoke. Just catching up on paperwork, I said, closing the laptop. Funny thing about paperwork. He moved closer, each step deliberate. It tells stories. Like how your father's been embezzling money through the foundation for years. My throat went dry. That's a lie. Is it? He placed a folder on the desk. The SEC doesn't think so. They're launching an investigation tomorrow morning. The room spun. If the Securities and Exchange Commission got involved, everything would crumble. Not just the company, but Dad's reputation, his freedom. What do you want? Sign over your shares. All of them. I'll make the investigation disappear. His smile was razor sharp. Or watch your father go to prison. Your choice. She's not signing anything. Asher appeared behind his father, his face hard. Show her the rest, Dad. Tell her what really happened to the money. Victor's expression darkened. You ungrateful. The money went to witness protection. Asher cut in. For your brother. The one who really fathered Sarah's baby. The one you tried to kill along with her. The slap echoed through the office. Asher touched his cheek, laughing bitterly. Finally showing your true colors? You have no idea what you're talking about. Victor's voice shook. Your mother was what? Leaving you? Planning to expose your crimes? Asher stepped closer. I found Uncle James. He's alive, and he's ready to talk. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Victor reached into his jacket. Don't, I warned, seeing the glint of metal. Security cameras are disabled. Victor pulled out a gun. Just like they were the night Sarah died. History has a way of repeating itself. Everything happened fast after that. Asher lunged. The gun went off. Glass shattered. I screamed. When my vision cleared, Asher was on the floor, blood spreading across his shirt. Victor stood over him, gun still raised. "Such a disappointment," he said softly. "Just like your mother." I crawled toward Asher, but Victor's voice stopped me. "Don't move. Sign the papers, or he bleeds out right here." My hands shook as I reached for the transfer documents. Asher's eyes met mine, pleading. "Don't," he whispered. "Shut up." Victor kicked him, making him groan. I signed. The pen felt like lead, each stroke another nail in our coffin. "Good girl." Victor tucked the papers into his jacket. "Now, about those files you found." The office door burst open. Eloise stood there, phone raised. "Say hello to the police, darling. I've been streaming everything." Victor's face went ash white. He turned the gun toward her, but security officers were already flooding in. The gun clattered to the floor. As they led Victor away, I held Asher's hand while paramedics worked. The bullet had grazed his shoulder, painful, but not fatal. "Why?" I asked Eloise. "Why help us?" She watched her husband being handcuffed with cold eyes. "Because Sarah was my sister, and 25 years is long enough to wait for justice." Later, in the hospital waiting room, Nolan Reed found me. "The SEC investigation was fake," he said. "Victor fabricated everything." But he hesitated. "But what?" "The foundation records revealed something else. Your father's been moving money into a trust. In your name." He handed me a document. "You're the majority shareholder now. Have been since the day you married Asher." I stared at the paper, understanding dawning. Dad had planned this all along, using Victor's own scheme against him. But as I watched Mom crying by Dad's hospital bed, as I felt the weight of the company pressing down, as I thought of all the lies and manipulation, I wondered, had anyone really won? The unknown number texted one last time. "The game isn't over. Some secrets stay buried." I deleted the message, but the words haunted me. Whatever victory we'd achieved felt hollow, stained with blood and betrayal. The prison visiting room was colder than I expected. Victor sat across from me, orange jumpsuit stark against his graying skin. 2 weeks in custody had stripped away his polished veneer. Come to gloat. His smile was brittle. "I came to return something." I slid the divorce papers across the table. "Asher signed this morning." Ungrateful boy. Victor's fingers twitched, just like his mother. Sarah wasn't ungrateful. She was escaping a monster. I leaned forward. "Your brother James is testifying tomorrow." The mask slipped. Fear flickered in his eyes. "You're lying. James is dead." "No, just hidden. Dad helped him disappear after you killed Sarah." I pulled out my phone, played the video Eloise had recorded. "But he's been watching, waiting, like that night at the office when you shot your own son." Victor lunged across the table. Guards rushed forward, but I held up a hand, staying calm as he trembled with rage inches from my face. "You think you've won?" he snarled. "You have no idea what's coming. The board meeting tomorrow has been moved up. It's happening right now." I checked my watch. "Nolan's presenting evidence of your embezzlement. The real numbers, not the ones you fabricated." He fell back into his chair, color draining from his face. "That's impossible. Those records were destroyed. Sarah kept copies. Gave them to James the night she died." I stood. "You know what's funny? This was never about our company. You just couldn't stand that Sarah chose your brother over you. She was mine." His shout echoed through the room. "Everything was mine. The company, the legacy. The baby." He went very still. "Did you know she was carrying a girl?" I continued. "James told me. They were going to name her Hope." Victor's hands shook. For a moment, I saw something crack in his expression. Grief, maybe, or regret. "You're just like her," he whispered. "Same self-righteous determination. Same blind faith in justice."
No.
I gathered the divorce papers. "I'm worse. Because I learned from you, Victor. About patience. About revenge." My phone buzzed, a text from Asher. "Board vote unanimous. It's done. The company's mine now," I told Victor. "Legally, officially, completely." And the first thing I'm doing is renaming the foundation after Sarah and Hope Langston. He launched himself at me again. This time, the guards intervened, wrestling him back as he screamed threats and obscenities. At the door, I turned back. One more thing. Those mysterious texts you've been getting? About buried secrets. I smiled. That was me. Learned that trick from you too. In the parking lot, Asher waited by his car, shoulders still bandaged. How'd he take it? About as well as expected. I showed him the divorce papers. You're free. We both are. He touched my cheek gently. What now?
Now.
I looked back at the prison. We build something new. Something honest. Together? As business partners. Friends. I met his eyes. Maybe more someday. When we're both ready. My phone buzzed again. Dad, being released from the hospital today. Mom had finally learned the whole truth about Sarah, about Victor, about everything. She was stronger than any of us had given her credit for. You know, Asher said as we drove away, I always wondered why my mother named me Asher. It means blessed or fortunate in Hebrew. Doesn't feel very fortunate. Everything that's happened. Maybe not, but we survived. We're free. He reached for my hand. Maybe that's what Sarah knew all along. That someday, her son would help make things right. I squeezed his hand, thinking of Sarah, of hope, of all the secrets and lies that had led us here. Victory felt different than I'd imagined. Not triumphant, but quiet. Like dawn breaking after a long, dark night. Tomorrow, we'd face the press, the shareholders, the future. But today, driving away from Victor's prison, I felt something I hadn't expected. Peace. The kind that comes not from revenge, but from truth finally seeing light. 1 year later, I stood in Sarah Langston's restored garden, watching the autumn leaves fall. The foundation's new headquarters had been built here, on the site where she'd once planned her escape, where she'd dared to dream of freedom. The first-class graduates tomorrow, Eloise said, joining me by the memorial fountain. 20 women, all starting their own businesses. The Sarah and Hope Langston Foundation for Women's Enterprise had become something neither Victor nor my father had imagined, a force for genuine change. Not just a tax shelter or money laundering scheme. James sent this. Eloise handed me an envelope. From Witness Protection. Inside was a faded photograph, Sarah, young and radiant, holding baby Asher. On the back, she'd written, "Some legacies aren't built of brick and glass." My phone buzzed, Dad, asking about tomorrow's board meeting. He'd recovered well, working part-time as an advisor while I ran the company. Mom had found her voice too, leading support groups for families affected by domestic violence. Marin. Asher appeared at the garden entrance. They're ready for the tour. I followed him inside, where Simone was showing potential donors around. The walls displayed photos of Sarah, articles about Victor's conviction, stories of women rebuilding their lives. Still feels strange, Asher murmured, seeing it all laid bare like this. Strange good or strange bad?
Good.
He touched a photo of his mother. She would have loved this. Using Victor's money to help people escape situations like hers. We'd found more of Victor's hidden accounts after his conviction. Instead of keeping the money, we'd funneled it all into the foundation. The ultimate revenge, turning his weapon into a shield for others. Have you read it yet? Asher nodded toward my office, where Dad's letter still sat unopened on my desk. He'd given it to me this morning, his hands shaking. I wrote this the day Victor first threatened us, he'd said, when I knew I had to make a choice. Now, in my office, I finally broke the seal. Dearest Marin, by the time you read this, you'll understand why I pushed you toward Victor's orbit. Not just to save our company, but because I saw in you what Sarah had, the strength to break cycles of control and violence. I'm sorry for using you as a piece in this game. Sorry for not trusting you with the truth sooner. But I'm not sorry for believing in your ability to turn manipulation into justice, fear into power. Sarah once told me that true freedom comes not from revenge, but from choosing to build something new from the ashes of what was destroyed. You've built something beautiful, daughter. Something that will last longer than any window or wall. All my love.
Dad.
I folded the letter as Nolan knocked on my door. Ready? The reporters are here for the announcement. The press conference was brief. Asher and I announced our engagement. For real this time, no contracts or coercion. Just two people who'd found their way through darkness together. Later, at home, I found one last surprise, a letter from Sarah herself, hidden in the Foundation's original paperwork. Her words, written 25 years ago, echoed across time. To whoever finds this, if you're reading these words, then the truth has finally come to light. Remember this. Every prison has a window. Every wall can be transformed into a door. The greatest revenge isn't destroying what hurt you. It's building something beautiful in its place. With hope. Sarah. I looked out my window at the city lights, thinking of all the women who would find their own windows, their own doors. Thinking of Sarah and Hope, of Dad's choices, of Victor alone in his cell. Some would call it karma. Others might say justice. But standing there, holding Asher's hand, watching our reflection in the glass, I saw something simpler. The quiet triumph of truth over power, of light over shadow. And in the end, that was the greatest revenge of all.